Hi, I'm Mark, the Communications Manager for EzineArticles.com. And as you can see, today I've got some chalk talk for you. And by the time you're done watching this video, you'll have the knowledge you need to start making better looking, easier to read, and more professionally formatted articles. In this video, I'm going to share with you some of the HTML that all article writers need to know. Now, as a writer, your first responsibility is to provide information to the reader. Your second responsibility, however, is to provide that information in a manner that makes sense and is easy to follow. And that's where HTML, or Hypertext Markup Language, comes in. A little HTML knowledge will significantly improve the readability and overall look of your articles. With any HTML, you use what are called tags. Now, these tags are what control how your content looks as well as the structure of it. All tags are enclosed in less than and greater than brackets. Any text you put between your tags will have the attributes of that particular tag. Now let's look at an example. Let's say you want to bold a heading or a subheading in your article. First, you need to know what the tag is for that attribute, right? Now to bold text, the tag is simply the letter B. So this is what it would look like to bold text. First, you have the less than bracket, then the tag, then the greater than bracket, and that's your open bold tag. Now, anything you type after the open tag will be bolded. You have to ensure, though, that you close the bold tag to prevent everything from being bolded. The closing bold tag is the less than bracket, a forward slash, the B, and a greater than bracket. And now all closing tags will have that forward slash in front of the tag, and that's how you know it's a closing tag. This closing tag ends the bold attribute. Now what if you wanted to make your text italics instead? Well, first you have to know what the tag is for italics. It's the letter I. Now you can simply replace the bold tag with the italics tag, and now your text should be italicized. Now perhaps you'd prefer to underline your text. Well then, you just replace your italics tag with the underline tag, which is the letter U. Now you have underlined text. Just be sure to change both the open and the closing tags. So how do you know when you should use bold, italics, or underline? Well, generally speaking, article writers bold text for headings and subheadings because it provides separation for the eye when you're quickly scanning an article. Now, many writers use italics when they're trying to provide emphasis within the context of the article. Italics are basically a verbal emphasis on the written word. For example, 7 HTML tips you need to know. Many people would italicize the word you so that the reader gets the visual cue that it's important. You can also use italics in place of quotes. So if you're referring to a book title, you can italicize the title instead of using quotes. It just makes the article appear a little bit cleaner. Now as for underline, it's rarely seen in online content. Why? Because any text that's underlined is normally designated as a link. However, some authors will use underlined text to provide emphasis to subheadings within a list. If you do this, just be sure that your reader won't view that text and think it's a link. Speaking of lists, that brings me to the next HTML tip: how to create lists within your articles. Now, to create a list, you first have to decide if you want an ordered list, which is a list that goes 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on, or an unordered list, which is just bullet points. To create a list, you first have to open the tag. Now, the tag is either OL for an ordered list or UL for an unordered list. Pretty simple. For this example, we'll make an ordered list. So open the tag, and then you have to designate the text for item 1 with the list item tag, which is LI. Once you have the content for item 1 written, you have to close that particular list item. And you do that by adding the close list item tag, just like this. Now repeat the list item steps until you have your list created. And lastly, you have to close the ordered list tag to complete your ordered list. It should look similar to the HTML right here. If you don't want to have an ordered list, simply change the OL tag to UL, so it's an unordered list. That'll simply change the numbers in your list to bullet points instead. Now you're probably asking yourself, why would I want to use lists and articles instead of a paragraph? Well, because lists provide visual structure to the article, and normally they're faster and easier to write than paragraphs. Also, it breaks up the text and gives the reader kind of a mental pause so they can process what they just read. Now last, and maybe most importantly, is how to make a URL or website address linkable and clickable. To do that, you need more than a simple tag. You need a little bit of code, and that code's right here on the right. This code will make the URL http://EzineArticles.com/link to EzineArticles.com. Now let's break this code down a little bit. First is the standard less than bracket that you've seen before. Then target equals new. All that means is that the URL will open up in a new tab. The href equals quotation marks http://EzineArticles.com is controlling the destination of the URL. In this example, once the URL is clicked, the viewer will be taken to EzineArticles.com. Now make sure you put the quotes before and after the URL so the web browser knows exactly what the URL is. The last bit of this code, again, has the text that you want to show as the link. Now in this case, we want http://EzineArticles.com to be the link. In this code, you have a linkable URL in your article. Now some people like to use anchored text links as well, which is having a word or words be linkable instead of the website address. To do that, you can use the same codes as before, just replace the second URL with the words you want to be linkable. The code on my right here will make the words "click here" link to EzineArticles.com. Now here's a little advice you'll want to heed if you want your articles to be picked up by publishers. Use anchor text links sparingly, because the HTML doesn't always stay with your article. By having your full URL as the link in your resource box, you're almost guaranteed that the viewer will still be able to find your website. And there you have it. Some basic but essential HTML knowledge that will help you create better looking and easier to read articles. HTML can seem rather alien, but follow these simple steps and you'll be just fine. Now go and use these tips to create another set of quality original articles and then submit them to EzineArticles.com for more traffic back to your website or blog. I look forward to seeing your next submission.